So, good evening, everyone. Buenas tardes a todos. My name is Renee Arlene from the Cypress Hills Local Development Corporation, Housing Counseling Division. And this evening, we're going to have a brief presentation on the recent orders passed by legislation passed by the New York State government related to, of course, COVID-19 and orders and laws that add some protections to tenants and dealing with potential evictions and so on. Next, próximo. Okay, so.
I can take it. Wait, do you wanna address the phone call first?
Do I want to address the what?
The phone call first. You want me to just handle, say it?
Yeah, no, we should mention that. If there are any folks who prefer Spanish translation, please feel free to call the number that's on the screen, 718-550-0109, with the PIN 78143. Si hay personas que prefieren hablar o captar la información en español, favor de marcar el número 718-550-0109, contraseña 78143, para una traducción del contenido. Gracias. Entonces, quiero presentar a los miembros del equipo de la Oficina de Asesoramiento de Vivienda. Tenemos esta tarde Rosalinda Gutiérrez. Rosalinda Gutiérrez, consejera que provee asesoramiento sobre asuntos de juicios hipotecarios y prevención de incumplimiento de juicios hipotecarios. Pero voy a hablar en inglés, porque estoy supuesto a hablar en inglés, y las personas que quieren una traducción pueden marcar el número que está en la pantalla. So, I'm going to repeat. So, introducing our housing counseling team. Rosalinda Gutierrez is the foreclosure prevention mortgage default counselor, and she also works with senior homeowners and senior renters. Nicole Gonzalez, who is managing the Zoom presentation for us, is our homeowner help desk counselor, and she works with homeowners who are looking to address issues related to home repairs or property tax increases, property tax exemptions, etc. Also, we have Christopher Rivera, our new tenant organizer / counselor. And he's new, he just started actually like 2 weeks ago. And his responsibilities will involve primarily organizing tenant groups in buildings and then also providing individual counseling to tenants. Thanks very much, everyone, for joining this Zoom meeting. Really appreciate your participation. For your information, we're going to be recording this event, and it will be available, after we conclude the webinar.
But also just know that we're going to have everyone muted so the presentation goes out real smooth. And then if you have any questions, we will be addressing them at the very end. So let me know when you guys are ready.
Go ahead. Gracias.
Ready.
Okay, so we've already done the introductions of the team members. Also, just to give you a brief kind of idea of the content of this webinar, we're going to be covering key aspects of the New York State's COVID-19 Emergency Eviction and Foreclosure Prevention Act of 2020. Became effective as of December 28th of last year. We're going to briefly cover the New York State Tenant Declaration of Hardship form and a couple of key elements of the federal government's moratorium on foreclosure and evictions. Próximo. So the New York State's COVID-19 Emergency Eviction Foreclosure Prevention Act of 2020 is a law that was passed to help to protect tenants facing eviction proceedings through May 1st, 2021, provided that they fill out the form. So tenants facing eviction proceedings, meaning folks who, for whatever reason, they are already have cases pending in the housing court related to evictions or non-payments and so on. The Tenants Declaration of Hardship form during the COVID-19 pandemic is New York State's eviction moratorium suspending eviction proceedings. In other words, cases that are in the court's calendar will not proceed, they will not advance for the next 60 days, so the tenants can fill out and submit a declaration of hardship form and submit it to the court and to the owners of the buildings where the tenants reside. Right, so it's important that the renters submit the hardship declaration form to the owners of the properties where they live and to the housing court as well. Próximo. Again, so the Eviction and Foreclosure Prevention Act, by the way, let me mention that we don't have a slide about the foreclosure aspect of this act. And one of the key points of the act is that owners can fill out what's called, instead of the tenant's declaration of hardship during the COVID-19 pandemic, the owners can have a form. It's almost same form, except it's addressed to mortgagors or owners of properties. And it states mortgagors' declaration of hardship during the COVID-19 pandemic. And so the moratorium, the act, is stopping any pending residential eviction proceedings for 60 days, stopping any residential eviction proceeding filed within 30 days of December 28th. So between December 28th and I'd say January 28th, for 60 days through the end of February. And it stops residential eviction proceedings until at least May 1st, 2021, where a tenant submits a completed hardship declaration form, right? So, but let me say that, let's say, for example, if a tenant or renter is unable to get the hardship declaration form submitted to the owners or the courts within the 60-day period, or the 30-day period for that matter, they should still submit that hardship declaration form to the court and to the owners. I must add that the Office of Court Administration of the state of New York will be sending the forms, the hardship declaration forms, to those particular renters who happen to have pending cases of eviction in the housing court, or pending non-payment cases in the housing court, or even pending warrants of eviction in the housing court, right? They will be getting they should receive the hardship declaration form in the mail. As soon as they receive the hardship declaration form, they should fill that form out, submit it to the owners, and submit it to the court. There is another form, by the way, that can deal with cases maybe that have happened to have fallen through the cracks, where a judgment of default has been entered on their case. Judgment of default meaning a proceeding took place, the tenant was unable to, for whatever reason, make it attend or appear for the hearing, the virtual hearing. And so the case got to a point where the judge signed a judgment in favor of the renters. So if that should happen, however, if it has been entered, the default judgment, right, that usually happens if a person fails to appear. During the pandemic, a request can be made to the court that the default be removed by completing and submitting a form. And the form is, it states that requesting that the default judgment be removed from that particular case. So I want to mention also that the form can be retrieved, or you can get the form by going to New York State's HCR office or the New York State Office of Court Administration, OCA, to get to have the default judgment removed from the court records. Next, Próximo.
So I'm gonna elaborate a little more on the hardship declaration. In case I missed it, my name is Chris, everybody. So a little more details. The first bullet point reiterates a little bit from the previous slide, stating that the Eviction and Foreclosure Act stipulates that if there were any matters in court that has to do with eviction, that they are stayed until 60 days after December 28th, which is February 28th. And that's if you do not complete the hardship declaration form, which I'll talk more about in the next slide. So what New York State is saying is that until February 28th, you cannot be evicted, or until March 1st if you fill out the hardship declaration form. The only way that a landlord could evict you is if you are engaging in some kind of activity that is damaging or a nuisance to the other residents in your building. So unreasonable behavior. Can you go to the next slide, please? My bad. So some of the in order to fill out the hardship declaration form, you have to fulfill one of two requirements. You either need to prove that or state that you cannot pay rent or find any kind of alternative housing because of financial hardship due to COVID, or you have some kind of underlying condition that will make it dangerous for you to move out. So these could include health risk for moving out, if you have children living with you, or it could be that you do not have enough money to find a new place to live. Can you go to the next slide, please? So this is what the declaration of hardship form looks like. I'm going to put a link in the chat right now for where you can find this form after I finish speaking. But right now, because I find it real quick, but right now, when you do fill out the form, this is an email that you can send it to. You have multiple methods to send it, but this is the Kings County Court email address that you can send it to. In addition to that, you have the option to mail it to your landlord or to the court. And if you need the address, I can put it in the chat as well. Or you can drop it off in person at a box outside the housing court. Can you go to the next slide, please?
Also, you can email it to the court. There was a link there that they had where the person can submit it via email.
And finally, in addition to this newer extended moratorium, the federal government, the CDC, has also issued a moratorium until March 31st, stating that the COVID-19 pandemic is still too dangerous for having evictions, and so the eviction moratorium will persist until March 31st. So to summarize, you have there are several protections for tenants under the threat of eviction right now. There's federally, well, let's do in chronological order. There's statewide for if you do not submit a hardship declaration form, then you cannot be evicted until until March 1st. Court proceedings cannot begin until March 1st. In addition, federally, the federal government states that regardless of what the states say, you cannot be evicted until March 31st. And finally, back to what the state is saying, if you do submit a hardship declaration form, then you are not legally allowed to be evicted until May 1st. And so this hardship declaration form is, I guess I would say, the most important piece for protecting yourselves from eviction. In the case that you do not have sufficient income because of COVID, that you have financial hardship, or that you have some kind of health-related risk from being evicted. And these two categories, you don't need to have both. So you don't need to be like financially struggling and have a health risk. It could be one or the other. And the last thing I want to say, and I'm going to put the link to the hardship declaration form in the chat in a second. But the last thing I want to say is that all of these moratoriums on evictions apply to you regardless of your immigration status. So you can be undocumented, and the law, you're still protected by the law. I'm going to pass it on to Rosalinda, who is going to talk more about your rights as tenants.
Thanks, Chris.
So I'm sorry, Rosalinda, before you begin. So I just want to make one quick point regarding Chris's outline of the different moratoriums. So the May 1st period for ending, the state's moratorium is the date where the cases that are in the court have been pending, they will begin to advance once again in terms of the proceedings and, motions, activities in the court process, right? So it's not like May 2nd, if you have a pending non-payment case or a pending eviction, doesn't mean that May 2nd you could get evicted on that date. But what it means is that the process of, hearings and, weighing the different sides about the issues related to the evictions, those processes will begin again, will go forward again, beginning May 2nd. Okay, Rosalinda.
Thanks, Renee. Okay. Hello, everyone. Good evening. As Renee and Chris mentioned, you guys are protected in different ways from getting evicted, but also some tenants might feel like they feel harassed by their landlords because they're going through financial hardships and other things, as many of us are going through, and are unable to pay their rent. So if any tenant feels harassed, they could file a formal complaint in the Housing Court and or through the New York State's Housing Community Renewal Office Administration. Or also if they feel threatened by the landlord, no one can actually threaten to kick you out of the apartment for non-payment. The landlords must start an action in the courts in order for that to happen. Also, the tenants can submit complaints if the owners are failing to comply with the fair housing laws. These laws prohibit any discrimination based on the protected classes, national origin, immigration status, marital status, gender, sexual orientation. So if you feel that you've been discriminated in any of these ways, you can also file a complaint. You, as a tenant, you can seek legal services or representation by not-for-profits. We work closely with some of them to help you with these cases in the court. either if the landlord brings you to court, they can possibly represent you, or if you want to start a case as well, they could, assist you with that, because it could be a little bit complicated and you want to be able to present your case fairly. Can you go to the next slide, Nicole? Okay, so there was one of the laws that was being reinforced by President Biden, which was prohibiting the sex discrimination for gender identity, sexual orientation. So this is going again, if you feel discriminated because of these classes, this is another way for you to, as a tenant, to file a complaint. You shouldn't be discriminated in any way possible. So if you feel that you've been discriminated in any way, just reach out to us. We'll, send you directly to legal services and they can assist you with any case you might want to present. Next slide, please. As I mentioned before, even though you're being threatened or harassed by the landlord because you're unable to pay for your rent because of whatever situation you're going through, you are not supposed to be locked out of your apartment under any circumstance. If that happens, if the locks are changed to the front of the building or of your apartment, you would, call 911, get the police out there, and they would assist you. Again, the landlord must start an action before even changing any locks. As Renee and Chris mentioned, May 1st is the deadline for any evictions, right? After May 1st, that's when the evictions may proceed. So if you feel like you're being unlawfully evicted, you could start that process against the landlord and get possession back of the apartment. But always seek legal advice before moving forward, before having any type of conflict with the landlord. Nicole, next slide, I'm sorry. Okay. I know this was probably kind of a short and straight to the point to what we were mentioning about about the moratorium dates, about protection, and just getting any advice that you might need, legal advice or any advice from us, the counselors. Please reach out to us. We can try to guide you or assist you in any way possible. If we can't, we have in the slide you're watching here, Brooklyn Legal Services Corp A. You can reach out to them if you feel that you're being harassed, you are being discriminated, or you just want to have some concerns about your current situation because you haven't been paying your rent. You should reach out to them and find out what options do you have after this moratorium, ends. Also, we have a tenant counselor, Juana Iris. She's very good helping out, giving information about your tenant rights. Chris is our new tenant organizer. If you live in a building 6 units or more, he can help you organize with all the other tenants to know your rights and to see how, if you need him, what other improvement can be done in that building that you're currently at. Nicole Gonzalez and myself, I'll put my number on the chat in a few. We help any senior tenant and owner with any housing needs. Again, as Renee mentioned, I'm the foreclosure prevention counselor. If you're a homeowner, if you know a homeowner that is struggling with their mortgage, or they just need further information about the forbearance plan or any type of assistance to keep their home, they could reach out to me and I'll assist them, give them information about that. I really hope that this information was helpful. We're also hoping that they postpone the dates of this moratorium and to protect our residents here, you know, allow them to stay in their home. We are still going through this pandemic. The economy is not great yet. So again, we're just trying to educate everyone, give them all the information as we get it. And we'll continue to, you know, bring this out to you guys. Anything else, Renee, Nicole? Thank you.
No, nothing else that I can think of at the moment. Just really want to thank everyone who joined the call. And again, if you you know, have any questions, are there any questions, by the way, in the chat? No questions. Okay. No. So if later you think of huh?
No, I was saying no questions in the chat.
Okay. So if later, if you have a question or you want to address some issue, get some clarification on some concerns or some element of the presentation this evening, please feel free to call one of us and we'll respond to your call. Thanks very much, everyone. Really appreciate your attendance this evening.
One last thing. I'm sorry.
Care.
Thank you, guys. See?
Thank you. You were saying, Rosalina?
Yes, I'm sorry. So in any case, if you know of anyone that would benefit from this information, we're going to have this in our social media. It's being recorded so they could, you know, watch it during their time, you know, whenever they have any time, because this is important information that I feel like everyone should know. You can share the word and just, you know, stay informed.
Thank you, everyone.